Hello and welcome to Tuesday's Daily Rundown with me, Dan Morfitt. Thank you for watching Channel 7. On the show, we'll be chatting about the big stories of the day, including Nintendo movies, Twitter's characters, and magic mushrooms. And we'll be hearing the sweet tunes of Lauren Lavelle too. And joining me tonight to make sense of it all are my brilliant guests. He used to work here, but we don't talk about it. He works for the other side now. It's media type, geek and tweed suit wearing Joe Toms-Ashcroft.
Hello.
But you're not wearing the tweed suit tonight.
I know, you're doing better than I am tonight. I couldn't even treat you to cord. I'm just let you down. I've let you down.
Let me down, Joe. He really does have amazing taste in suits. And also making a welcome return to the Blue Bonquette, he draws funny and fights nuns for money. It's doodler and comedian Mike Milling.
Hi everyone. Hi, I'm not in a suit.
No.
Sorry.
I'm not battling any nuns either.
You do realise we're on the TV tonight?
Yeah, well, no, I forgot. Here I am. Am I going to be here long, actually? I need to go.
Oh, thanks. Right, don't forget you can also get involved with the show as well at home by tweeting us at The Daily Rundown. Also, please follow us. For your time, you'll get photos of us here on the sofa in a selection of various poses. Vogue style. Right, let's look at our first story. A recent study by the Alzheimer's Society has found nearly 2/3 of people fear a diagnosis would mean that their life is over. And this has meant they're putting off seeing their doctor. Our reporter Abby Smitten went to speak with a couple who want you to know that a diagnosis is not the end.
Yeah, well, you can't say that on camera.
I can't say that. Well,
No.
that was on it, though, wasn't it?
On it, yeah.
3 years ago, Leslie Calvert was diagnosed with dementia. For her and husband Sam, raising awareness of what living with dementia is really like is incredibly important.
There's so much negative press, and there's this thing on the television at the moment. One of the soap operas are going on about it, and it's so negative, it annoys us terribly. Because they're trying to say that you've got Alzheimer's, that's it, off you go, finish.
Well, this wasn't Alzheimer's, this was vascular
vascular,
yeah, but what they were saying is he was going to drop dead the day after, which it doesn't very often happen like that. It's going to be months, probably even years down the line.
But he just portrayed it so negatively, I thought it was awful, that. He's frightening people.
He got diagnosed, went looking for a nursing home day after.
In the first week from his diagnosis, he went looking at a nursing home. I thought, well, that's another 8, 10, 12 years down the road before we start thinking about that. For some people.
For vascular, it could be even longer.
But it came across so all the negativity, and that's not what you want. You've got your diagnosis right now then. This is what you can do.
For the pair, recent cuts to dementia services is a concern. Veronica King of the Alzheimer's Society says the cuts are a big problem.
Undoubtedly, there are really big challenges impacted by the cuts to budgets around dementia, social care and things like that, and they're a massive challenge and an area of concern. We know that one of the biggest challenges as well at the moment around social care for people with dementia is the lack of the way that the social care system and the NHS are joined up. And so part of that is about actually making sure that people don't end up in hospital unnecessarily, that we've got that early care and support in place. And that not only would save money in the long run, but actually it's much better for people with dementia and carers who tend to have far worse outcomes once they're in hospital. So although those things are definitely a challenge and, you know, there's no easy solution around the kind of current financial climate, integration still is a real opportunity to transform things.
For Leslie, the thing that helps doesn't cost the earth.
Something to make our life easier to live. It's not something that's going to cost thousands and thousands of pounds normally. It's just easy things like communication groups.
Despite recent concern, dementia's going undiagnosed because people are too afraid to see their GPs. Sam and Leslie say the support's there from the people closest to them.
But as regards what happened to Leslie, to me it's just an extension of this. She's my wife and that's it. So I'm my husband first and then I'm a carer. She used to be the nurse, now I've got a nurser.
Abby Smitten, Daily Rundown.
That's another cut.
Thanks to our reporter there, Abby Smitten. Now, it's a report of two halves that. There's the half that says, you know, funding for Alzheimer's really isn't at the level that it should be. But from Sam and Leslie there, it's showing, you know, it's not a death sentence. Alzheimer's, you know, it doesn't need all the money in the world. I think a lot of it is just patience and just having loving people around you.
Yeah, it's interesting what he said about the stories on TV and the way the media represents it. And he felt, because you always hear actors and people who are doing those storylines talk about how they feel like they're helping or feel like, and he said it was quite negative. Or he feels that I guess it comes across as so negative.
There's a portrayal for drama which doesn't really reflect the real life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's brilliant that you need positivity and So.
No, I mean, I do think there is an issue with, as it brought up there, the gap that's emerging between the kind of social care and the frontline care. I mean, particularly, because so much of the work's being forced to be done by carers. I think it's estimated it's around 670,000 people provide care at home for loved ones suffering from Alzheimer's and other kind of conditions like that. And that saves 11 billion to start off with for the NHS. So there are already strains the people at home already making up that difference, and if you're seeing that gap get larger, it's only going to put more strain on families dealing with them.
And those are the ones we know about as well. Those are the ones that register themselves as carers. There's almost a silent army of people that look after their loved ones with no recognition at all. And I think that's one of the negative things about this report from Abby. It's like that gap in care and that gap of knowledge between the authorities, between the hospitals and the people just almost going through the motions because it's their loved ones at home is terrible.
And it's as well, it's really difficult because so much of, the Alzheimer's Society, they seem to suggest that 44% of people living with dementia haven't even received a diagnosis. So when you take that into account and the kind of figures, and that's a figure that varies up and down the country. So, you get places like Hereford where it's a much higher diagnosis rate to areas in the country like Corby, which is a lot lower. When you're having that disparagement, across the country, then trying to get a cohesive plan of attack for it's even more difficult.
And it's that fear of diagnosis as well, isn't it, Mike? People don't want to be told that they're suffering from dementia, that they're in, say, the early stages of Alzheimer's. It's a fear thing, but I think people like Leslie there proving that don't be fearful, get the diagnosis. Yeah,
it's one of those things. No one wants to hear any sort of news like that, but it's one of those big words, isn't it? Like cancer or, and Alzheimer's. But, the minute you'd hear that, obviously your life is suddenly changed and different, but it's the way you face that head on, I guess.
It's quite nice that we're speaking about it now on here, and it's spoken about in TV dramas and in the media. But Alzheimer's for me is still relatively a new thing. It wasn't really talked about when I was little. My nana never talked about Alzheimer's, and her generation never talked about it. They just saw it as natural old age.
Yeah. Well, it's fair understanding. I think as well because we have a much more ageing population now. So people are getting older, and having more numbers of older people in the country means that you're going to find out more things about getting older. Whereas it might have just been dismissed before our hand. It's like, well, hang on a minute. You've got more and more people suffering from these quite debilitating conditions, and it's very scary to think that it's going to affect. They're talking about around 1 million people in the country by 2025, and that's starting to turn into big figures.
Yeah. And as you said earlier, that skills gap between the carers who are just looking after their loved ones at home and the actual medical professionals is just going to get wider as more and more of us are in the throes of possible dementia and other diseases in old age.
Well, that's the worry, is that it's going to become more upon the carers and those at home living with it, and that kind of strain, particularly as you're watching your loved one, potentially change in front of your eyes.
That's the last person that you want any more pressure on, is it, the carer? They've got enough to deal with, I guess.
But it was really nice to see that married couple there.
Yeah.
They were, when you think about Alzheimer's, you think it's your nearest and dearest, your loved ones, almost going first, and their personalities going before they die. They're not talking about it in such negative, hushed tones. They're looking at it like, well, we know something's wrong, so we may as well enjoy the time that we've got together. And that was beautiful when he just looked to his wedding ring and he goes, that's more important than anything else. And that's a great attitude to go through things with. It's the person that you said you'd be there in sickness and in health, and he's doing a great job, not caring for her, but just loving her, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, and they both get, that's not just, it's for both of them. And that's the attitude of survival, I guess. It's, it's being together and coming together and loving each other.
And with advances in healthcare, 20 years ago, we wouldn't have even been talking about stem cell research. And that is sort of chipping away at different aspects of dementia and Alzheimer's in particular. Within another 20 years, we could have a possible key treatments. We could have a cure.
Well, definitely. I mean, they are looking at studies at the moment. I know there's a number of university studies going on at the moment, and I think the key to it is early diagnosis. Because often when someone gets diagnosed with Alzheimer's, they've actually already had it for maybe 10, 15 years already.
Really?
And that kind of slow progress has already started. If they can start to identify much earlier when that happens, that's going to give us a much more better quality of life. It also saves lives. It's recommended if you slow it down by 5 years, the onset of dementia, that'll save 30,000 lives a year already. So it's all about getting in there early and not being so afraid of it, I think.
It's getting that prevention rather than treatments once it's past the point of no return.
After it's bolted.
So I think the good thing about that report as well, we really should highlight that it's not just a disease of the elderly. It can happen as early as your 20s, your 30s, and that slow process can start. But as long as people get that early diagnosis and don't think that Alzheimer's is a death wish, a death warrant really, then it's good for people to get involved and go to the doctors.
Yeah,
that's what they're there for. Great report, that's right. It's time for a quick break now, but the three of us will be back in just a few minutes more with talk of a possible new treatment for depression and the lack of taste on the BBC. All on the Daily Rundown very, very soon.